Welcome friends to another r/IDontWorkHereLady video. If it isn't too much work, could you hit the like and subscribe buttons down below? But with that said, our first story of the day is by Marley Sapan, Mistaken Heck. I work at a grocery store, been with them for 12 years now. This happened about 9 years ago before a few uniform changes. At the time, we had khaki pants and a blue polo with the store name and a name badge with our name. You could also get jackets and other items that had the company name on it. Well, one day, I had needed a ride home after work. My mom was cool with coming to get me, just had to give her some gas money, which I was cool with. She just had to make a stop at a different store for something my store didn't carry, which I still didn't mind at all. I think it was for a plant or plant related. We went to a We Sell Everything store. You know the store. I think everyone knows it. So at first, I had opted to stay in the car till I remember there was a game I wanted to get for the PlayStation. I went in full uniform for the grocery store I work for. I'm making my way back to the electronics when I get stopped. The lady asks me who the heck remembers what it is. I had no clue where it was, let alone what it was. I replied that I didn't know, but the store employee that was behind her might. But before I could even get their attention, she goes off. She's saying she's going to have my job by the end of the day or some stuff. I roll my eyes and walk away. A little while after this, my mom, who knows I'm in the store, texts me saying she's getting a shirt or something and that I should head for the front. I start that way, meeting my mom before she gets to the registers. As we round the corner, I see her. She was talking to the store manager. Our eyes locked for a moment and then she pointed to me and said something to make the guy turn. By this point, we were in earshot. The manager turns and says, "I don't work there." The woman said something along the lines of wanting a corporate number and she would report me. I love this manager for this. He said, "Fat chance that will do. I'll say this again, she's not my worker. You'll have to call that store's corporate office." Then tells her to get out. If you were in a managerial position and some Karen comes up to you complaining for some ridiculous reason, would you hesitate to just kick them out? Let me know in the comments down below. Our next story is by PIIP, so this probably doesn't belong here, but you might like the plot twist. I'm in a hardware store that imports things to the US. The store name even implies that the tools are freight, just came from the harbor. A random guy comes up to me while I'm standing in line to check out. He says, "Is a 1.5 ton jack strong enough for a blah blah car?" I mentally thought that he probably didn't follow me into the store and replied, "That's the same car I have. We could go check." Then I get called to the register, pay, and go get the jack out of my car, bring it into the store, and call out for the guy asking about a jack. I showed it to him. He was super thankful. I think the guy just needed a little help. That's how my day started. OP was way more useful than I would have been in that situation. I definitely would have been like, "Oh, I don't work here, I'm not sure," and then just try to leave as fast as I can. Our next story is by Black Anaconda. I just pick up here. I work for a courier service that picks up medical samples. I have to go to different locations to pick up. One being CVS. They keep the samples in a box that's inconveniently located at the bottom of the check-in kiosk, but about 2 feet to the right. I get there and there's a young guy checking in, so I excuse myself, squat, and grab what I came for. I thank the guy for understanding, and off I go. As I'm walking down the aisles to leave, I notice that I'm being followed, so I speed up to not be in the way. I catch a glimpse of who it was, and it was the same guy who was checking in. I walk even faster out of the store and to my car, and the guy keeps pace. At this point, I'm thinking that maybe he's parked next to me, so maybe it isn't that weird. I get to my car, stop and open it, turn, and I see him just standing there looking at me. So I let out a, "Am I in your way? Is your car on the other side of mine?" The guy responded with, "I thought you told me to follow you. Don't you work at the clinic?" I replied, "No, I said thank you to you and I was just picking up here. I don't work here." We both just awkwardly laugh off the misunderstanding and he strolls back inside. Honestly, if I was in an OP situation, I'd be a little bit spooked. Imagine speeding up to try to get out of the CVS and into your car, and some dude behind you just keeps speeding up with you, following you all the way. OP had a lot more innocent thoughts than I would have. I would have been like, "Why is this dude following me?" This next story is by George the Doggo. Comped Bagel and Coffee for employees' confusion. For some background, I'm a relatively small Asian girl living in the US. Also, it was winter, so I was bundled up and maybe that contributed to the situation. But I'm thinking it was more the former than the latter description that led to this. A couple of years ago, I went into a nationwide fast casual place known for their bagels and soup bowls. I stood in line and waited my turn, but when I finally got to the front, I was berated for being late by the lady behind the register. I was so confused and too anxious to say, "I don't work here, lady." The cashier kept asking, "What the freak? Why are you late? Where were you?" Her manager was right behind her with a look of horror. Then she finally made eye contact with her boss, as if to ask why he wasn't saying anything to me for being late. Based on his look, she immediately knew she made a mistake and started apologizing profusely. Suffice to say, I got my bagel and coffee comped for her slip-up. A little while later though, it all became clearer to me because another Asian lady rushed in with the company's visor and uniform on, apologizing to the manager for being late. I awkwardly made eye contact with the employee who'd mistaken me for her coworker, packed up my stuff, and left. The worst thing about it though was this other Asian lady was in her late 50s. I was only 23 at the time. Guess I look like a 50-year-old, but some of my other Asian friends were pretty upset on my behalf when I told them about this. I guess at least they apologized, but man, that is one heck of a mistake to make. That does not look pretty for you. Our next story is by First Lady of Whiterun, Men's Room Attendant. My husband just told me this story about something that happened to him last night, and I had to jump on here and share. My husband, a general officer who commands a military base, was attending an event at our base at which he was to give a brief speech. He wasn't in uniform, but was wearing khaki pants and a collared polo shirt with a military service emblem on it. He was leaning against a wall in the back, responding to emails when an elderly gentleman approached him. "You look like you work here," the gentleman said. My husband replied, "I don't work here at the club specifically, but I work on the base." The elderly man said, "Well, the men's room is a disaster. Could you possibly clean it up or get someone to do it?" "Okay," my husband said, and the gentleman walked off. Since he was still waiting, and figuring he might as well use the facilities before his speech, he decided to wander in the men's room to see what constituted a disaster. The big problem? The trash can was full to the top with paper towels. Having worked at a McDonald's in high school, the word disaster associated with restroom implied a lot worse to him. He pulled the bag out to see if there was another underneath so he could bag it up himself, but there wasn't. So he wanders back out and notices that the elderly gentleman and his wife were seated at a table just to the right of the speaker's podium. He's introduced and makes his way to the front. Just as he begins his speech, he hears, clear as a bell from the right, an exclamation of, "I'll be darned." Unfortunately, he had to leave for another event after his speech, so he didn't get to speak to the gentleman. He did, though, find a club employee to inform them of the disaster. Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. When I hear public restroom disaster, I too am thinking like the stall door's broken, somebody peed all over the floor or something, an entire paper towel roll ended up in the toilet or something, somebody found their caveman roots and drew pictures all over the walls with brown paint. Now that would be disaster to me. Our next story of the day is by OKConfusion777. Wholesome lady helped me when she didn't have to. Not crazy nor laughable, but greatly appreciate this kind lady to this day. This was during my first year of college when I was starting to figure out how to take care of myself when I was sick. I was trying to get a tea strainer for some loose leaf tea that I got so I could drink tea and feel better since my throat hurt so much. Would have definitely have stayed home if I lived with someone, but I was in a dorm at the time, and no one I knew had a car on campus except for me. So my sick, very sniffly, slightly delusional self drove to Target to get myself a tea strainer. I don't shop at Target often, so I'm not the most familiar with the store, and for some reason the tea strainers were like an end cap for the card aisle. Anyways, I was looking everywhere, could not find it. Also somewhat out of it, then I see a lady wearing a red shirt. The magical Target red shirt. Salvation has blessed me. I say, "Hi, would you happen to know where the tea strainers are?" She says, "Oh, sweetie, I don't work here." I say, "Oh, I'm so sorry. Thank you." Not too sure why I said thank you, but I did. Like, thank you for dealing with my stupidity. And I thought that was the end of the interaction. A little later, I'm still searching for those gosh darn tea strainers, and this lady comes back with an employee. That can definitely help me. She said, "Here's someone that can help you feel better." I was very obviously sick and out of it, so she knew what was up, and I'm quite certain everyone in that town was used to absolutely clueless college kids. I still have that tea strainer. Hope this little bit of a happy I don't work here story makes someone smile. It's always nice to hear stories of people that stop and help somebody, but I think it's especially rare to hear a story where somebody stops, goes and finds an actual employee, goes back and tracks down OP and hands them off. It's one thing to stop and help if you know the items or where something is, but to really go out of your way, that doesn't happen too often. Our next story is by Daedra Dice. Are you my mother? This is more of a funny experience, which we can't help smiling about when we think of it. My wife and I were grocery shopping a few weeks ago, and while grabbing some pasta sauce, my wife crouched down to grab a jar at the back of the shelf. While she was doing this, a man was pushing his cart up the aisle towards us with a young boy in the seat and a young girl, maybe 3, walking alongside. The girl suddenly broke into a run and yelled, "Mama!" I assumed she was calling to the woman who exited the aisle a moment earlier, but I then watched as this girl ran up to my wife and bear hugged her. My wife was surprised and looked over her shoulder. The girl suddenly realized her mistake, let go, and ran back to her father asking, "Where's Mama?" The dad told her, "Well, if you walk with me, we'll find her, I'm sure." The family passed us, the dad giving an apologetic smile, which we returned. My wife and I looked at each other and had a good laugh. We both come from big families and love kids, so what happened didn't put us out at all. Every time we go down that aisle, we laugh at the memory. I told my wife that she should have snorted, "You are not my mother, you are a snort." But the little girl probably wouldn't have gotten the reference. No dramatics, no Karens calling for a non-existent manager, just a rather cute case of mistaken identity. Honestly, this is one of the most adorable I don't work here lady stories I've heard in a long time. Honestly, depending on the person, maybe that innocent, adorable hug is all they needed for the day. I think it would easily make your day, and it would definitely be one of those memories you look back on from time to time and just laugh about. Though if I was that kid, and if I grew up remembering that moment, I'd probably still be always mortified of it. This next story is by Rillius12, short and sweet. Honestly, I was just happy to catch some flack in the wild. I made this mistake of going to Wally World last weekend in search of Christmas lights. Ours is right at the edge of town, and Saturday means a road trip for all of the country folks. It's a solid people-watching experience if you want to lose your faith in humanity. Anyway, this maskless lady was giving a real workout to the motor on the riding cart. She started grilling me about where to find the fake trees on sale. I started off by patiently listening. That was my mistake. She started the heavy breathing yelling once I tried to interrupt with an "I don't work here." I let her finish. Once she had all the steam out of her kettle, I told her the bitter truth. I'm merely a civilian. She yells, "Well, darn you, you sure look like you work here." I guess my green t-shirt, basketball shorts, and banana yellow Crocs really helped me to fit in. I'm sorry, but did OP not hear that Wally World adopted banana yellow Crocs as the new uniform? Seriously though, could you imagine going to any grocery superstore and you see the employees walking around in basketball shorts and banana yellow Crocs? I think the only place that employees would just about be wearing that would be in the Dr. Seuss universe. And our final story of the day is by Philly Shelby 2. I was putting away a coat that I tried on. I was at a ski store with my mother the other day to get winter gear. Hello, Minnesota. And after finally finding the coat I wanted, I was putting away the others that I tried on. A woman comes up to me with another coat and goes, "Oh, I just have a question real quick. The price is blocked out, so what's the price for the coat?" Mind you, I was wearing normal clothes. All the while, all the workers had neon orange shirts with store name team member covering the entire front and back. I just smiled and said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I don't work here." The woman literally goes, "Oh, sorry, I just saw you putting jackets away, so I thought you were." I'm sorry, but putting stuff away that you pulled out is the bare minimum to being a good customer. I'm 16 and I know that. My 10-year-old brother knows that. I guess, if anything, that kind of just tells you about the practices of this lady. You try on the coat, doesn't fit, you go, I'll just leave it here. I'll just throw it on top of the shelf or on the floor or on a chair here. They're the kind of person where if you go to the shoe aisle in a store, they're the ones that leave the shoes, one pair on the floor in front of the seat and one on top of the seat. The paper inserts strewn across the floor. If you're not gonna buy this stuff, put it back. It takes 30 seconds. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. So of all these stories I've read today, which is your favorite and why? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you haven't yet, if you could like and subscribe, that would mean a lot to me. Whatever you do, whether it's liking, subscribing, turning notifications on, all of it helps grow this channel and I appreciate the heck out of it. So until next time, I'll see you all tomorrow with some more stories.